Well, hello, and thanks for watching another episode of ARFCOM News, your twice-weekly dose of the finest 2A propaganda. Gavin Newsom is desperately trying to tidy up before his date with Winnie the Pooh.
You know, folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true.
But even after kicking out all the bums and putting up fences everywhere, and despite some of the most draconian gun laws in the nation, Newsom's police state still couldn't stop a Czech news crew from getting robbed at gunpoint in San Francisco for 18 grand worth of camera gear. I wonder if he's considered using tanks. I hear the Chinese have some really effective crime reduction strategies. The police came to take a report, but as is almost always the case, they, of course, arrived too late to intervene or capture the perps. Still, San Francisco Mayor London Breed promised to use taxpayer money to replace the stolen equipment. How do you folks feel about that? Should the mayor be handing out 18 grand worth of other people's money without a vote? How are those funds appropriated? Does this mean that she has access to a cookie jar she could just spend on whatever she wants? While you ponder those questions, please also consider how it would be literally impossible for us to produce quality 2A propaganda without sponsors. So let's pay some bills. Today's video is sponsored by Springfield Armory.
New for 2023 is the Springfield Echelon. The striker-fired polymer frame pistol features Springfield's new variable interface system for mounting multiple optic footprints and the serialized cog fire control for inserting into multiple frames. Find out more at springfield-armory.com.
Through the end of December, you can get 3 additional magazines and a range bag with select handgun purchases. And by Vault Pro, proudly manufacturing the finest American-made safes, vault doors, safe rooms, and storm shelters. When you buy from Vault Pro, your safety, security, and privacy is their only priority. And by Primary Weapon Systems, PWS is now offering their advanced BDE suppressors in 4 caliber options: 7.62, 9mm, 22, and 5.56. These suppressors offer revolutionary sound control, all while remaining lightweight and tough. Easy to clean, easy to install, easy to maintain. These suppressors will make shooting even better than it was before. F-Troop keeps getting its ass handed to it in federal court. It lost on bumpy boys and braces, and now the Fifth Circuit unanimously smacked down ATF's frame or receiver rule, putting ghost guns back on the menu. What's important about these rulings, though, is that the courts aren't just telling ATF they're wrong. They are wrong. The courts are saying the ATF lacks the authority to make these determinations at all. Judge Kurt Engelhardt said, "Where an executive agency engages in what is, for all intents and purposes, lawmaking, the legislature is deprived of its primary function under our Constitution, and our citizens are robbed of their right to fair representation in government." Judge Andrew Oldham writes, ATF's overarching goal in the final rule is to replace a clear, bright line rule with a vague, indeterminate, multi-factor balancing test. ATF's rationale? The new uncertainty will act like a sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of American gun owners. But apparently, the constant losing streak has the Fed boys big mad, so they published another rule banning smoke and flashbang grenades. The new rule even affects those little pull string emergency smoke signals. Now, technically, they didn't actually ban anything. They simply removed the exemption they had put in place for these devices. So anyone who wants to sell a smoke grenade needs to have a federal explosives license. And if you already own any, you will be required to store them in an AFT-approved explosives magazine. Why? Well, because they can, really. F-Troop claims they have received reports of flashbang and smoke grenades being used against law enforcement officers. Naturally, the exemption for the Kingsmen and the government contractors who supply them remains in place. Why do we care? Well, aside from the general par-for-the-course government overreach, smoke is an important component of small unit tactics and can be used to break contact with an opposing force. What can we do about it? Well, we can fight it in court, but this is one of those areas where Congress has given ATF authority to create rules. Or you can just make your own smoke grenades. All you need is some and die. A federal district court just ruled in Williams versus Garland that it is unconstitutional to deny a person their right to bear arms because of a prior drunk driving conviction.
Let me tell you about drinking and driving, man. Boy, that shit is fun, man.
No, the court isn't saying DUI is lit or that a conviction doesn't demonstrate irresponsible decision making. What's at issue here is that the federal government considers someone a prohibited possessor if they could have been sentenced to more than 1 year. Even though Williams was just sentenced to 90 days of house arrest, his conviction could have been punished by up to 5 years in prison. But DUI, while obviously irresponsible, is not a crime of violence or malice. One thing that stands out is this ruling references the Third Circuit ruling in Range versus Attorney General, which was a case where a man was denied his Second Amendment rights for a decades-old conviction for lying on a food stamp application. The reason that's interesting is that Range was supposed to be a very narrow ruling applying only to the plaintiff and people like Range. But the district court ruled Williams' case is similar enough to Range that it applies here as well. This marks the beginning of the end for people losing their 2A rights for nonviolent, victimless crimes. The NFA is unconstitutional and ought to be repealed. It regulates protected behavior and imposes a tax on a constitutionally protected right. But so long as it exists, would it be so bad if the revenue collected for tax stamps was used for something useful? When you pay your $200 tax for a Whisper Pickle, the money goes to the Treasury Department without any sort of earmark, just in the general fund, so to speak. But a new bill introduced by a House Republican and a House Democrat would earmark those funds for wildlife conservation, shooting ranges, and to speed up processing of those forms at the ATF's NFA division. I have mixed feelings about this one myself, and I'd like to hear your opinions. I'm sure almost all of you watching this would probably agree with me that supporting wildlife conservation and the shooting sports is a good thing. And while I'm reluctant to give the feds more funding, giving them money for processing NFA paperwork could be a good thing. On the other hand, once earmarked, it will forever stand as an argument against lowering the cost of stamps or eliminating them altogether because we don't want that funding to dry up. What do you folks think? Should we support the Tax Stamp Revenue Transfer for Wildlife and Recreation Act? Comment below. Do you have a right to buy a gun? Does your right to bear arms include the right to procure those arms? Not according to U.S. District Judge John Kane. He recently upheld Colorado's waiting period, saying that to keep arms means to retain arms already in your possession. That is a new, ridiculous, and dangerous interpretation. This meaning would throw out the entire Second Amendment. Taken literally, only the arms which existed in 1791 and the people who kept them would be protected by the Second Amendment. Applied to other rights, it would mean you're allowed to publish a newspaper, but you can be prohibited from buying a printing press. I am absolutely certain that Rocky Mountain gun owners will appeal this decision, and I am equally confident this doddering old fool's decision will be overturned. To help RMGO make that happen, please go to rmgo.org and give generously. Come on, dude. You were just going to spend that money on a pair of Nekomimi earmuff covers anyway. And now, for your moment of Zen. Hey friends, do you like pews and other pew-related things? Would you like to help us keep delivering you pure American pew propaganda at the low price of $3.99? We literally couldn't pay the bills without our sponsors, so do us a solid and get yourself something nice from them. You deserve it. I love you.